James Franklin's officially over at Virginia Tech. Everyone seems pretty happy with the move. And now the consensus is that Penn State messed up big time.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That is right. It is a Locked On Crossover to talk Penn State football and the seismic change that James Franklin could bring about at Virginia Tech. My name is Zach Seyko, and I'm the host of Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily source for all things Penn State. He is Brian Smith, the recruiting expert, college football expert here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network out there, as we are going to talk about, get a reality check for Penn State, Brian. What kind of job is this? What level job is this? Top 10? Is this barely top 30, right? Where does Penn State actually stand in the pecking order? We're also going to talk about which players, commits we think are going to follow James Franklin, and coaches as well. Administration, follow him to Blacksburg, Virginia. But get your take initially on the impact of Franklin at VT overall. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Friendly reminder to let us know your thoughts down in the comments section. So, Brian, the floor is yours. This is going to be an interesting episode. I don't know if it's going to be a fun episode from the Penn State point of view, but give me that reality check here. Did Penn State mess up big time by firing James Franklin and letting him go to not necessarily a rival, but a regional program in proximity that can do some damage?
Well, when you fire a coach, you don't know where he's going to go. So I don't think they let him go anywhere. But by getting rid of him, you put him in proximity to you, possibly. So let's see who Penn State hires first. But he's going to do some damage to Penn State. He's got an ego. He got fired. He's going to want to recruit Pennsylvania. He's going to want to recruit New Jersey, DC.
He's got an axe to grind.
I get it. So he's obviously a good recruiter. We both know that.
Mm-hmm.
He understands all the political correctness of how and when to recruit certain schools. Can he get it done early? Probably not. But they're going to build a top 20 team.
What do you mean by not get it done early? Because we're going to, with the portal in conjunction with that, we're going to talk about, what the concern is with him trying to gut this Penn State roster. So you say he can't get it done early. Why do you say that?
Virginia Tech has to prove to me they have the money bags to make it happen quickly.
You think it's all lip service? Because they have the financial backing, and they're it's the rumor is they're now a top 3 financial institution in the ACC.
Prove it. That's what I say.
Okay.
So, I need to see that. And if they are, then we'll know right away, because there's only one portal window, and that's January 2nd through the 16th. Mm-hmm. However, 2 parts here. Number one, Franklin likes to build more through high school. Secondarily, he's just getting in there and he's getting his assistants. It's kind of rough. It's not a Franklin or Virginia Tech thing. He's not going to have everybody on the ground that he wants for very long. It's going to be random who they kind of get first year. I'm more curious with his first full class. How many times can he win a battle against Penn State, against Notre Dame, against Syracuse, against teams that recruit the East, Michigan, Ohio State, Maryland? I bet he wins some battles, because I've always said when I come on your show, Zach, recruits pick coaches, not schools, more often than not. Franklin's a popular guy with recruits. We both know that. And he's going to bring some guys with him on his staff that are good recruiters. And Virginia Tech's got some history. Yes. Years 2, 3, and 4, I'd be more worried about him, though, if I was Penn State than I am year 1. That's just kind of how I look at it, because they're probably not going to be that good year 1. That program, like their depth, I've watched them 3 or 4 times this year. They're not very good. Defensively, that is a sieve. Like Florida State just beat them up. That's not a good sign. I cover Florida State too. They're not very good either. So they got a long way to go. He probably needs 30 portal players. Did they want to really go in year 1 and spend a bunch of money and go 7-5? Maybe. I think that he would probably rather dump that money into recruiting. And that's why I bring up, let's see what happens a year from now. December 3rd is this year's signing day. A year later, if they signed the number 18 class, number 17 class, something, would it shock me? No. It's not that hard to recruit there. You're not that far from Charlotte. You're not that far from the Virginia Beach area. It's possible. That's what Beamer did. He recruited DC a little bit. He was very much decentralized North Carolina, Maryland, and obviously Virginia. And it worked. So they occasionally grabbed a kid from PA or New Jersey, but it was pretty much those 3 states. And it worked. I don't think Franklin's going to really spin off of that very much. Maybe you'll get a South Carolina kid or an Atlanta kid once in a while, but Penn State's going to battle them a lot. And just from a personal, I don't have any stake in it like you do.
Yeah.
You're a guy. I'm excited about it because I don't know fully how it's going to go.
Yeah.
But it's going to be entertaining. That I can guarantee you.
Now, from Penn State's point of view, because any Virginia Tech listeners or viewers are like, this is awesome. This is great. Penn State obviously let Franklin go, knowing that there could be consequences of a move like this. So here's kind of why it stings the most in the present, why hindsight is 2020. And anybody that's compared it to, this is like an ex, seeing your ex jump into a relationship, posting about it on social media. Everyone's happy. The new couple's happy. And Penn State's still single. And part of the reason why, and interim head coach Terry Smith, we're having the conversation right after I just came from Penn State football practice. And he said, well, he admitted it. He's honest and said, well, the reason James Franklin and Virginia Tech can do some damage is because they have a head coach and nobody knows what the heck is going on at Penn State. That's the issue. It's not the fact that, oh, Penn State, well, it's not about who they could hire. It's that you don't know who they could hire.
Right now, it's probably easy to pick on Penn State for a week or so. Do we really think by the 10th of December that this isn't all over with? You know what I mean? And recruiting, that it may not go great, but it probably wasn't going to go great anyway. But even and so, like if you're Penn State, it's probably not going to take very long. If it does, they hired the wrong guy. But if you can somehow get a head coach like December 1st, 2 days after the last football game, you could probably salvage a few kids and maybe even get a couple kids to flip right at the very end. I'm not worried about Penn State long term. It's more the interest kind of like soap opera battle with Virginia Tech. I think if you're a Virginia Tech fan watching this, you're curious what I have to say about it and just hoping I hate on Penn State because you probably don't like Penn State. Most Virginia Tech fans don't. I get it. They come into your state all the time and get players. But the fact of the matter is it's still Penn State. They're going to get some guys. I haven't even asked Zach like what he thinks the next Penn State head coach is going to be. I haven't heard anything on it recently, to be honest. It seems like it is a little bit up in the air, but that's a very big brand. We'll get into that here in a little bit.
Yep.
Like how high a job is it? I might have a higher view of it than others, but it's going to be hard to beat them. I think that Penn State will ascend very quickly, even with a so-so hire. I mean, what was it, Zach? $700 million they were dumping into Beaver Stadium? Like,
yep,
the resources are pretty ridiculous. It's kind of a hard job to turn down.
And James Franklin immediately goes to Virginia Tech and says, I need the resources to be able to succeed. And he's right. And that's the thing with this move, Brian, to conclude segment one and then pivot into, okay, who's he going to take with him from Penn State? We've already seen administrators go with Franklin reportedly. So Franklin has been good. He was good to take Penn State from tier 1 to tier 2. And then, and okay, we could break up the schematics of, okay, what is tier 1? What is tier 3, tier 4, right? All those things. But Franklin was able to modernize Penn State, get the facilities, get some more interest in recruiting, and bring Penn State into the modern era. And he's actually doing that with Virginia Tech. The thing that I see the biggest difference in, Penn State fans, some of them, are pointing out, oh, Franklin's just saying the same thing. It's the same old song and dance that we heard. And Virginia Tech's like, yeah, this is great. And I'm sitting back thinking, okay, it got annoying to some Penn State fans, maybe even most, but to Virginia Tech, maybe this is something that they want, that they welcome, an ambassador of sorts to help lead them into the modern era of college football. Because if any program's been left behind since the glory days, so to speak, it is Virginia Tech.
That's a great example. I remember the 99 title game. They were pretty close to beating Florida State. I mean, having Michael Vick kind of helps, but still, I mean, yeah, he was unbelievable.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how far they fell down. And it shows you just one wrong move administratively. And like Penn State's been through some of this stuff too. Even just an assistant, the wrong assistant hire, et cetera, losing the wrong assistant, man, you could fall off real quick.
J1 Sider.
Well, I mean, that wasn't their fault. I mean, he's just friends with Freeman. And that was going to happen at some point. But you know what? it's part of the game. Now Penn State still has a chance to pick up the pieces because they're in a pretty good spot. Like their roster's still pretty darn good. I'm not too concerned about them. I'm curious to see if they give James the resources that he needs to go get the big time coordinators. It's one thing to recruit players, you got to coach them. They developed a lot of guys that were 3-stars. We talked about that on your show all the time.
I know.
They didn't have top 5 classes, but they had classes that stayed together. They didn't have holes in their classes where they didn't have players at spot A or B, and they developed pass rushers that were just they had mid-level offers and they ended up in the NFL. He knew how to recruit a team. Now does he get the money to get the assistants to get those players at that level like he did at Penn State? That's the real question for Virginia Tech. He'll find players.
Well, that's the long-term plan for Virginia Tech. I mean, the short term, again, they could try and gut the current roster that's in Happy Valley. A lot of turnover with a lot of seniors moving on to the NFL, but there's still some players on this team, including ones from the state of Virginia originally, that could follow James Franklin back to Virginia Tech. We're going to talk about that next here on this Locked On Crossover. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot and an even bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets. That's right, $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And those bonus bets can be used on anything. NFL football, NBA basketball, college football. Lines are available for Penn State versus Nebraska this weekend. Penn State is a pretty decent favorite here. 8.5 points on the spread, minus 330 on the money line, plus 265. If you're thinking the Cornhuskers for an upset, the total is set at 44.5. If you like those lines, you can bet them over at FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. And remember, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Well, we've already seen James Franklin start to bring over administrators with him to Virginia Tech. It's been reported that a number of people that were on staff, not coaches, but guys behind the scenes, we're talking recruiting coordinators, we're talking general manager, chief of staff, already reportedly joining Franklin and Virginia Tech. That was expected because a lot of these guys are Franklin guys. Okay. They're not, they didn't come from Penn State, right? Some of them have already followed Franklin everywhere. Vanderbilt, Penn State, and now Virginia Tech. What's going to be interesting, okay, what assistant coaches? Any ones that are actually affiliated with Penn State? Dan Connor, linebackers coach. Legacy, Deion Barnes. Terry Smith, the interim head coach, right? He didn't say no when asked about if he would follow Franklin to Virginia Tech. What about key Penn State players? Because I'm not too privy on Penn State losing guys like Tony Rojas, who would be a starting linebacker next year. His co-starter, Amari Campbell, who would have formed, I think, both of them are all conference caliber. And again, if Tony Rojas stayed healthy, maybe there's a case for him to be an All-American. Hey, that's a completely different conversation. What about quarterback? Do you want to go chasing a quarterback in the portal? Most coaches will have their preferred guy that they bring in that would follow them, right? If you take a sitting head coach. But Ethan Grunkemeier's not bad. I do see a future for him if he wants to stay at Penn State. But I'm also starting to side with the fact that I can't help but think that Grunk might follow James Franklin and be an instant starter at Virginia Tech next season.
Depends on who Penn State hires and how quickly. Because if it gets done quickly, they can figure out the offensive coordinator and all that stuff. Grunkmeyer is going to be attached to that quarterback coach / OC. I assume it'll be one and the same. Sometimes it's not, but it's not the head coach with the QB. It's the guy that's calling plays.
Okay.
So that's the key there. I'm going to leave Grunkmeyer alone, but he picked Penn State and he's from Ohio. Not many Ohio kids go to Virginia Tech. That being the case, you never know because he's got familiarity with Franklin and some of that staff. So I'm sure he's got an offer to go if he wants to transfer, and that'd be fine. My guess is he'll stay at Penn State if they make the right kind of hire. In other words, don't hire a 1985 I formation coach, which there aren't any of those anymore, really. So they should be okay. The Virginia guys, though, I would be surprised if they didn't lose at least one.
Okay.
That'd be my guess because loyalty is still a very strong thing. How good is Virginia Tech going to be next year? I don't know. Is it going to be somebody like Rojas? Doubtful, but at the same time, it's possible. They've got, how many do you think they got on their roster that are Virginia right now? 15, something like that. It's got to at least be 15 kids, I'd imagine, out of like 100.
I mean, if we're counting walk-ons, or in Penn State's case, they're called run-ons, right? James Franklin called them that. There are a number of players, but also ones that are from DC. It's not only just Virginia, because everyone points out that, Virginia is, or tries to point out that Virginia is this recruiting hotbed, and there's so much talent that comes out of there. That's not the case. But when you group DC, Maryland, and Virginia together and make it one territory, yes. When you combine the three, because they're not states, I know my geography. When you combine the three areas together, then yes, that is the DMV overall, because it's more encompassing, especially Maryland, right? Zion Ely, I know he's not going to Penn State or Virginia Tech, but there's just more top tier talent. Emmanuel Iheanacho, right? There's just more top tier talent that comes out of Maryland specifically than Virginia itself. Virginia is still a quality state, but it's not this, it's a top 10 state for recruiting. I'd say it's debatable if it's in the top half. And I know I'm going to get, hammered in the comments for saying that as well. But it's the players that are also from Maryland that for example, an Yvonne Kamaju, who's from the state of Maryland, right? Could he follow James Franklin to Virginia Tech? Because in theory, maybe it's closer to home. Not entirely sure what that would be. Again, Rojas and Campbell, they're buddies, they're friends. So if there's a little bit of the appeal of the homecoming aspect for them, or what about guys like AJ Harris, who still has eligibility? Or how about some of the Florida prospects that you're familiar with, Brian? Kobe Howard. I would like Kobe Howard to stay at Penn State, and he's all the way from Florida. There's really not anything that's keeping him at Penn State if this coaching staff is a shell of itself from when he was recruited there to what he committed to. There's consistency there with James Franklin. But he didn't play under Franklin, all this and that. Hey, Franklin still got him to commit. So I don't know what to say there. Any of those names that would stand out to you? Because I would like to see Harris stay, or there's Dejon Lane. Dejon Lane is from Maryland as well. So those are some players that I'm a little skeptical about, that have uncertainty at Penn State, that could find themselves starting at Virginia Tech.
If I had to guess, it's always relationship based. Keep that in mind. But I think defensive players would be more likely, because Penn State was so much more successful defensively. That'd be my guess. But which ones? That's just purely relationship based, and it's never the easiest thing to figure out. The DC, Virginia Beach, all the way down to the kids out in the sticks of Virginia, they might have got a few of. That's not going to hurt Tech's chances, but it's going to be James's relationship and the people he brought with him from Penn State, their relationships as well, if they're going to make that move. I could see even a few guys that are backups. I don't even know who they would be.
Yeah.
In general, it could be PA guy, whatever, New Jersey guys. Because like I said, I'm not trying to be mean, but this Virginia Tech team's probably going to need a lot of transfers. They're down to freshmen.
But that's the intriguing part, is that you can come in and start right away at Virginia Tech. Yeah, you'll play.
At certain spots, they need somebody to play. Like, it's bad. So they couldn't cover Florida State at all, and they got a couple good receivers, but like their pass game is pretty inconsistent, and that that's how bad their secondary is right now. So I'll be curious to see what Franklin throws together. But yeah, any kid he's familiar with, you also got to remember there's not a lot of background check to do there. He already knows them.
Yeah.
Like, he was just coaching them a month ago. So yeah, I think that's 5 to 10 kids, most of which probably aren't that consequential to Penn State, will end up there. Something like that. Maybe like one starter, rest backups would be my guess. This concept that it's going to be a mass exodus to Tech, I'm not buying that.
Okay.
Because that program is in a bad spot. It's going to be a little bit. So I don't think a lot of the Penn State starters are going to be like, oh boy, let's go to Tech. I don't see that.
I could still see there being maybe not necessarily a mass exodus, but a decent amount of players, whether that's Virginia Tech or just other schools, right? These are players that can play Big Ten football. It is presently a step back for them to go play in the ACC. It's the SEC and the Big Ten that are the biggest feeder to go to the NFL. So could other Penn State players, not necessarily, it's not even about Virginia Tech. if you're Penn State, you have to try to find a way to keep them from being poached by other Big Ten programs, other SEC programs. So it's not even just Virginia Tech in this instance. It's about fending off other immediate comparable programs right now in the present. So Penn State, with that being said, hey, they're in the Big Ten. There's an allure to stay at Penn State because of the level of institution it is. Or so I say, because my personal opinion, Penn State is a fringe top 10 program, especially with the finances that they have. But State College, it's not that great of an area. Okay, so let's talk about it. What kind of caliber of program is Penn State? What level job is it? And why hasn't Penn State hired anybody? What's going on? What coach will fit best? We're going to get into all that and more coming up next here on this Locked On Crossover. What kind of caliber of job is Penn State? Because most Penn State people, including myself, will say, you look at the actual tangible financial records, Brian. The revenue estimate that was put out, a year or 2 years ago, say Penn State is a fringe top 10 job. They're right behind LSU in terms of valuation, so to speak. Texas, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Michigan, they're the behemoths and have a sizable advantage in terms of money. But Penn State, it's not like they're far behind. Oh, but then when you consider geography, and no one wants to be in central Pennsylvania, and if it wasn't for James Franklin modernizing Penn State, there would be no interest. They're not that. The general public around college football that doesn't know a lot about Penn State tends to lean on the fact that this is just an average program, that James Franklin carried them, that Penn State as an institution itself is not appealing. And then when you have where we are presently, it's hard. I'm saying it's difficult to argue against it when Virginia Tech has a head coach, so it's kind of perception based, and Penn State's still, Penn State's been told no by proxy by Curt Cignetti, by Mike Elko, by, I guess, Matt Rule in this case too. And Penn State's really taking its time to find a head coach. So where do you think Penn State is? Are they borderline top 10? I think they're safely in the top 15, depending on who you ask, that, what has a nuanced opinion of this, and definitely not outside of that. So where do you stand?
Somewhere between 7 and 12. It depends on how the administration is built at the time. And that's the case with anybody. There's a 4 or 5 team swing because of the renovations and stuff. They're obviously on an upswing in what they're willing to do. They're spending $700 million.
Is that a lot? Is that a lot of money?
It's a rumor. It's a rumor. And they're in the Keystone State. Mm-hmm. There's players there. New Jersey, Ohio, DC, Maryland, Virginia. It's a good job. I think it's probably forgotten about a little bit because Franklin didn't win the big games. But when was the last time they didn't win at least 9? It's been
2021, 2020 with the COVID season. And then in 2021, they went 7-6.
So they fell off after COVID. It's kind of a weird.
That's understandable. And that had a lot to do with the fact that they couldn't get visitors on campus. They had to sell Penn State through Zoom. Okay. And James Franklin wasn't good at that. Nobody would have been good at that.
Yeah, that's a whole nother animal. But he renovated that program. They won 1 Big Ten title. And the only reason they didn't win more is Ohio State was rolling. Let's just call it what it is. They couldn't beat Ohio State. That's Michigan for the most part, but Ohio State just beat the crap out of everybody. It's the best program in the country. So other than that, they've been really good. I think with a better game day coach, Penn State's probably been in a national title game or something like that in the last 10 years. But again, I'm not saying the next coach is going to recruit like James Franklin did either. It's not one or the other. You got to do both. And there's only like 3 to 5 of those guys in college football usually. So that's what they're trying to do now. We'll talk about that when they hire somebody. But yeah, as a job, if I'm Brian Hartline, just to use as an example, I would want the Penn State job. And I'm guessing that he probably hates Penn State because he grew up competing against, like literally.
Yep.
But you got to be realistic. Just as an example, Bob Knight was at Indiana for 30 years, but he played at Ohio State and they tried to get him to go back and he didn't. Once you leave, you just kind of like go to where you're at. Not many guys go back. Mm-hmm. It happens. I would imagine that they're going to end up with somebody like that that's from a major program that's in assist Buster Faulkner or something. I have no idea, but they're going to get somebody that's really good. And they'll have a chance to be a top 10 program with that kind of resources. $700 million. That's not normal, bro. It's not normal. So I would imagine that Penn State's going to be just fine. And the talent and the history and the recruiting base, all that is fantastic. It should not be very difficult.
There are plenty of names that they can and should hire, right? And in no particular order, okay? Like, and I'm not talking about realistic or like Brian, because I want your answer on who they should not hire or who they should try to avoid, right? What would consider them, this was truly a disaster, because you said it's only a disaster for Penn State if they get their hire wrong. It's not that James Franklin went to Virginia Tech, it's who they hire to replace him. So Brian Hartline, I think, would be an A type of hire. Bob Chesney, if you give him time and see how he does, I think he could be an A hire, but there's going to be speed bumps along the way because he's never managed a program the caliber of Penn State, but he's been a head coach for a long time. The names that I think actually don't elevate you, the one in particular is Eli Drinkwitz. I mean, he's a Norman, Oklahoma guy. He's coached in the SEC. He just has no ties, no connections to the Northeast, to the Mid-Atlantic. I know he's recruited a quarterback out of there, and he beat Penn State for Matt Zollers once upon a time. He has Bo Prabula, right? But long term, how is he going to fit in at Penn State? So at Kalen DeBoer, if it crashes and burns at Alabama, right? There are Penn State people, including myself, that think, hey, maybe there's an opportunity here to get DeBoer away if they happen to lose to Auburn here, finish 9-3, and everything's like, whoa, this guy's not it. He is not the replacement for Nick Saban. So where's your mind at when you're thinking Penn State, this is what they can do? Or is there a total wild card out there that I'm not even naming, a Brian Daboll, for example, to take over?
It depends on what their timeline is, because you're going to get screwed on National Signing Day if you make a coaching change, no matter what it is now, because it's the first Wednesday.
You have to go through the transfer portal. You have to build through the transfer portal.
You're going to lose some kids. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
With that being stated, I don't know how patient Penn State's going to be, and I don't know who they would try to hire, but to my knowledge, the only guy that's going to be in the playoff that's available is Kiffin, and I don't think he's interested in Penn State. That's not a fit. So this is probably going to be done in December, is my guess.
Okay.
Just think about the teams in your head. You kind of know who's in the playoff. Are any of those guys really going anywhere? No. So barring something very unforeseen. So that, the guys that are like Alex Golish and the guys like, Summerall and stuff, they're in play. That's fine. Mm-hmm. Some of the main, like Glenn Schumann, the defense coordinator at Georgia, there's all kinds of possibilities, but I'm trying to think like you did. The guy at James Madison's interesting. Who's got ties to the East? It's got some kind of recruiting acumen and, it's got some pizzazz. I still think
Chesney, he's a Pennsylvania Cold Belt guy.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And Hartline's from Ohio. That's, that borderline. Anything like that's impressive, but it doesn't always work that way. You need to still cast a wide net and just go through the interviews. But if they don't have somebody by the 20th of December, I'd be surprised.
All right. And that's where we're going to finish things up on this Locked On crossover, but we're definitely going to have plenty of follow-up conversations as the names start to move through the news cycle, right? There's going to be plenty to break down, plenty to analyze, rumors galore, and also what's actually tangibly being reported, because Franklin, like I said, axe to grind. He's going to come after Penn State, and we're going to break it all down from the transfer portal angle, the recruiting angle, the personnel angle, all of it. He is Brian Smith, the host of the Portal, which talks all things transfer portal and recruiting. He's just the college football expert here on the Locked On Podcast Network. My name is Zach Seyko, your Penn State expert over at Locked On Nittany Lions. Subscribe to both of our channels and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest conversations around all things Penn State and college football. Brian, thanks so much for the time. Thanks for your expertise, and can't wait to have a follow-up conversation, hopefully positive for Penn State, but it's always great to chat with you.
Thank you very much. I look forward to it.